Thank you so much for coming. We just want to have a conversation like you would at your own home about foster care and about loving kids and working with kids both in the home and in the church. And so each of you here, because you kind of bring some background and some life experience in doing those things. So we just kind of want to hear about your story and glean some good wisdom from it.
I am currently the head of school over at Heritage Christian School. We have 3 biological and 1 adopted children, girl, boy, so kind of a perfect order, only a few years apart each. And so we're still in the thick of it with high school, middle school, and elementary. Other than changing diapers, we're clear of that for now.
And I also have a nonprofit named We Foster LA, which serves foster families in the LA area.
I'm the children's pastor here at Real Life, and I also just welcomed a little baby boy, so if you need some diapers, I'd be happy to hand him off to you for a little while.
Okay, good to know.
If we want to diaper somebody.
And as you guys know, I'm Michael. I'm one of the pastors at Real Life Church, and I'm married. I have 3 kids. It's great. So we're all parents. We're all here. We all have families. Kind of give me a little bit of history and the journey to how you guys started building your family, in particular, how it moved from biological kids to the adopted kids.
Right. Well, we were married for, I think, probably 5 or 6 years and knew we wanted to start a family. But at about the 3 or 4 year mark, we just really struggled with infertility. And so towards the end of that process, we really began to look into adoption, but we're kind of like, oh goodness, this is a really big beast we have to tackle too. Like there was just a lot of different facets of it. But God really just began to work in our heart for that. So of course, as we decided to move that direction of adoption, I got pregnant and with our first Ella, and then we got consequently pregnant with 2 more, and we were pretty sure we were done because I was in my late 30s at the time and was ready to be done birthing children. But then that came back to us. It just kept coming back like through speakers and we would be at a conference and it would be on foster care and adoption, and we were like, God, what are you trying to say to us? And then it just became really clear that we were going to follow that path. And so we started to investigate, and the foster to adopt concept was very new to us. We had never heard of that before, and we learned a lot through that, and that's how we ended up with our 8-year-old son. So
Yeah, it was our church that had a weekend talking about every child having a home. So of course we went, we learned more. We were introduced to a ministry that kind of was a recruiter for foster parents. Independent of each other, we were each having concerns. With every step we took, I might have a concern, but she was gung-ho. And then I learned later that she had some doubts, but it was when I was gung-ho. So we kind of leapfrogged each other in terms of getting there. But every step we took, we followed the path that God laid before us. And kind of in an interesting way, about the time we got started was 9 months before Samuel was conceived. So we were basically meant to be, you know.
What did you pull from your parents in order to walk into this idea of parenting?
with our youngest especially, when a child comes from trauma, there's really a different way to parent them than we had been raised, and then the way we had raised our biological children. And it's been we still feel like we're learning day to day what is best for him, and it's not what we were raised with or how we did our first 3. Our first 3 kids too are very, very similar to us, very calm, very compliant. Our youngest is not. And so we've really had to just be very prayerful and open to different ideas of parenting that were very foreign to us.
Right. Well, whenever one of our bios would do something later became funny, but the time was wrong, we could identify our personalities going on. With Sammy, we might still pin something on one or the other, but we know that it's him. It's just his personality. It's where he came from, the trauma he was dealing with in utero. So it's very different.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me the day that she brought up the trauma affects how he acts. Looking back on our first, there was this song that Leslie would play in the car when she was pregnant with Ella. And it turned out to be the very song that would calm Ella down when she was 2 months, 3 months, 4 months old. So the fact that there's that familiarity for Ella starting when in utero to when she was a baby, it just clicked.
Yeah.
It's the same. We don't know what Sammy's dealt with. It doesn't matter. We're there to love him and take care of him as best we can, and day by day figure out what he needs.
I can only imagine the difficulty when you have someone in your home that isn't, as you say, your bio child, and you don't know the full story of the trauma or necessarily the personality of that kid. And so you're trying to almost, in a sense, recreate the parenting wheel just for that kid alone.
Almost reverse engineering. Where has he been? Where's this come from?
And not knowing his genetic history or even having any of the medical history or any of that from the biological family. It's really interesting to discover and uncover what's best for him, and it makes it really challenging at times, but good.
What was that process like for your other kids as you figured out how to parent this new child that's maybe a little bit different than you had parented before?
We get a call one day, Leslie does, and she turns around and calls me and she says, so there's this little baby waiting for us, what do you think? And some of the events of the day kind of helped me confirm that, yep, this was the day and this is the son we're bringing home. And so we made phone calls, raced down, so this is what, 11:30 in the morning. We got down to the hospital about 3 o'clock and we got back to church just after 6 with Sammy. And at that moment, I put Sammy down and our kids were picked up from school. You talk about a village. People from church just surrounded us and took care of everything. Wow. Our van was loaded with diapers and the necessities and all we had to do was go pick them up and show up. So I put Sammy down in front of our kids and there was this instant love. And my fear at the moment was, okay, we've got this invader into our home and how are they going to do it? Now they were part of the journey, but their ages were where they wouldn't necessarily understand what's going on. They were still pretty young, but there's this instant love, this instant interest in Sammy. And immediately I thought, oh, stink. If he doesn't stay with us, I've got 3 little hearts to take care of. Yeah. And I had prepared and Les had prepared, but oh no. So here we are taking the walk and day by day and month by month. And finally, 15, 18 months later, he was stuck with us, but until then, we had some close calls about him leaving.
I'm hearing that like, yeah, we're prepared, but they're not, right? And so they instantly fall in love with Sammy. And now the fear is, gosh, they haven't been able to walk through the idea of what if Sammy doesn't stay. I'm curious about the preparation process. What were some of the just maybe preconceived conceptions or things that you're kind of like trying to work through in your own minds as as an individual and then as a married couple, bringing somebody else into the home, and then, oh, how's this gonna like affect our whole family? Like, talk to us a little bit about that.
I think when we made the decision to walk forward with this, because you have to go through a lot of classes and a lot of preparation, a home study, which is really thorough. I mean, you have really in-depth conversations about your past, your history. There's nothing left uncovered when you go through this process. So you have to
fillet you.
They really do. And there was so many points where I was like, what are we doing? Like, this is insane. Like, we had to go take some classes down in LA and we just did not want to go do that. But every time we did it, God just affirmed in one way or another, whether it was we really enjoyed the teaching that day. We're like, man, that was really good. Like, we could have used that when we had our biological
Yeah.
And so
more than once.
We're like, dang, I didn't know that. So there was so much affirmation that God it was so clear to us. There was a lot of fear. And there was times I was walking through it kicking and screaming, but I knew God was directing us. And so there was so much affirmation in that's what kept us going.
I mean, when we heard the stat that if one family out of every church would adopt, the whole system would be taken care of. There'd be no more need. And we sort of realized we could be that family for our church. And so I think that was really one of the things that anchored us to kind of keep going, because we knew that we could. By this time we had 3 kids of our own. So we had a little bit of an idea of what we were doing. Yeah. And we had the space and we just kind of had the room in our hearts to do it. And we knew we could.
Because in the United States, there are, I think, about 400,000 in foster care. Some of them are ready to be adopted. The parental rights have been terminated, which means they no longer have a relationship with their biological parents and they're ready to be adopted. So 400,000 across the United States. There's more churches than that. In LA County specifically, on any given month, there is 35 to 40,000. Wow. And that is more than any other system in the United States and more than most states. The need here is bigger than anywhere else in the United States. So we were really aware of that. That was all new to us. We had never heard that stuff before. But it really pierced us because we're the church. Like, we need to be really paying attention to what's going on in LA County.
Why do you think there's such a huge gap in people stepping in for these kids?
Oh, fear.
Fear.
Absolutely. A lot of which we had and still have. And there's a lot of preconceived notions that may or may not be true about children in foster care. The reality is the children that are in foster care, it has nothing to do with anything they've done. There's no behavior that put them in foster care. They are put into foster care because there's something unsafe in their home environment, something that happened to them.
If I'm sitting in church and I hear about foster care and I hear about these kids, I'm like, oh man, something needs to be done. But I don't hear about it. I'm wondering if that's the bigger problem than it is my fear. I've not been presented the opportunity as often.
Well, or the opportunity might be presented as foster, adopt a child. Well, there's so much more that can be done. Like the support of foster families is really lacking. So just supporting a family that's deciding to take that journey, I think people think, well, if I'm not going to foster or adopt a child into my home, then that's not for me.
And Grace, I know you guys were even thinking about adopting before you found out about baby Finley.
Yeah, we had started the foster care process before I found out I was pregnant, and I think one of the things we wrestled through a lot as a young couple wanting to start our family, just other people's expectations and what are people going to think? Like, why would you want to adopt when you could have your own kid? There are just like so many assumptions and questions, and so I think kind of similar to what you guys were sharing, just being anchored back to, okay, I feel like this is something that God has called us to, and so how are we going to stick with that regardless of how it may look or what other people might say or think about us or families' expectations of what grandkids will look like. There's just lots of other people's opinions that I think we had to work through, and that's still something we're passionate about is foster care. So it just kind of changed to, okay, maybe this isn't the right season, but how can we still be a part of this? And so maybe bring them dinner or something like that, and
So important.
keep
That's
that
a big
as
deal.
part of what God has called us to, even though it looks a little bit different than we thought it would.
The support of like a meal, the church people that we know and love that filled our van with onesies and diapers. I mean, that saved me a trip to Target
Yeah.
when I had a newborn in my home with 3 other kids. I didn't want to go do that. So
And not just the newborn and the kids, but all of the social workers that are there checking on
Right.
us,
It's-
checking on the child on behalf of the. And there's so many people involved that just that one little thing was a gift that actually led to the ministry that Leslie started.
Oh, wow.
Because we didn't realize at the time how well supported we were. We knew we were supported. We didn't realize how unusual that was.
Right.
and especially for foster parents, they're really loaning it by themselves. And it's a hard journey, as parenting is anyway.
As parenting is
Yeah.
naturally, yeah. It's easy to have that one time a year, hey, this is what we should be doing for the vulnerable. But, you know, the Bible gives us a mandate that we're to love one another. That love one another doesn't just happen once a year, right? You don't just love your spouse once a year. It's Valentine's Day, I love you today, right? You love your spouse, you love your kids every single day. And that mandate that we read in the Bible is an everyday thing. It's, you know, love the vulnerable, speak for the vulnerable, shepherd and walk with the vulnerable every single day.
And I will say for sure, I don't think any experience in my life, I've been a Christian since I was a teenager. I don't think any experiences has shown me the love of Jesus more than getting approved for foster care and stepping into that not so lovely system and fostering him and adopting him and the challenges that he has, really learning to love day by day when it's hard, when it's really hard. It's just revealed Jesus to me in a way I never experienced before.
When I think about it, I feel like that's exactly what Jesus did for me. All the things that I have done wrong and all of that, God has brought me into his family, and I wonder, how can I not do that for other people?
When you guys talk to other people, because I'm sure you have a lot of people in your friends or network who probably ask you, okay, so what's it like? And then they're like, well, I can't do it. What are some of the things that you hear from them as to the reasons why? Like, what are some of the fears they share with you?
I think the biggest one I hear consistently, and I just heard it a week or so ago, is that, oh, if they do leave, if I'm fostering a child, which the goal of the courts, especially in LA County, is to reunify with their biological family. So the likelihood of a child staying in your home is slim. They're likely going to go back. I couldn't love a child for that amount of time and then send them back. That would be so hard on me. And we have to think outside of that. Like, we're mature
not about
adults, hopefully, that it's not about us. It's about making sure that they feel connected and loved and ready to go back to wherever
Right.
it is they're going to go back to. If they stay with you, great. But to really not think about how hard it's going to be, and it will be, but that it's really about loving that child.
I mean, you can make an imprint, even if that child's with you for a little while, and you don't know what they're going back to. You know what they came from. They weren't pulled out of their home because it was good, but you get to make an imprint and hopefully make a difference and something that will sustain them and be the difference they need someday.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully, prayerfully, the house they return to is better.
Like, sometimes you might foster and be asked to monitor visits with the biological family. Supporting that biological family is really challenging because there's just this natural kind of contention because their child has been removed, and they might be a little jealous, but loving and supporting that family is super important too, because that's their biological family. And we know someday our son is going to say, hey, we made a decision not to stay connected to them for safety reasons for him, but he's going to want to know. And I want to have those answers for him. I want to let him explore that. He's going to need to do that. That's his biological family.
Right.
So just being open to that, and not remembering that it's not about how I might be hurt or my feelings in it, but what's best for him,
Right.
and will help him grow.
It's not like, oh, okay, if you want to serve the vulnerable kids, you have to go and be an actual home. You can actually like support people who are opening up their homes to do that.
Yes. I mean, imagine needing childcare. If you want to go out on a date, the requirements on babysitters is just higher. So by taking a step to even be a babysitter and going through that means you can help a couple like us go on a date, go out on a movie, go out to dinner, just stay connected, because the stronger we are, the better we'll be for the children in our home. We hear about a lot of families feeling a little bit stuck because they don't have that outlet and the opportunity to get out and just be a couple. By serving just in that one little area, not only could you help the couple stay stronger, but you might actually help that couple stay in the foster care system a little longer, because burnout is a big thing. Of course, providing meals here and there is a big help, sometimes shopping, but just there's so many ways that you can serve in the foster care system.
They need a great home to come into to be loved, but then on the other side, they need a great church that's going to really walk with them and help them grow spiritually. What are you seeing from your seat as a kids pastor? We're trying to get people to serve with kids from the church standpoint. What are some of the fears, maybe misconceptions that people have that they like, I don't want to jump into that side of it either too, because that's scary.
What I love about the church and what the church has uniquely to offer is just that it's so much more than just childcare while their parents can go to church, but being that adult influence for kids who we don't know where they're coming from or what life is like during the week. And so I think that's such a cool thing that the church has uniquely to offer. But it can be intimidating to work with kids at church, because I think some of those same fears of like, I'm not qualified, I don't know how to teach the Bible, or I don't know what to do with kids. And I think
these aren't my kids. What if I break them?
I think we put more pressure on ourselves than maybe is necessary, of like, I can't do that. But we don't have to have all the answers. One of the coolest things that I've learned is that kids that get to know Jesus as a child and tend to keep their faith as they grow older, one of the biggest factors in that is having other adults alongside of their parents that care for them. And I think that goes back to what we've talked about with having a village, whether it's with foster kids or kids at church, just that influence. And it doesn't have to be somebody that knows all the answers. I don't know all the answers of what I'm doing sometimes, but being that person who's just there. But I think more than having answers, I think it's asking questions and allowing, just being a safe space for kids to ask their questions and to wrestle with God and what they're experiencing.
So you don't have to have it all figured out. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Right?
I think I wish I would have known that sooner.
It's a journey, so just take a step. And at some point along the way, God's going to let you know you need to go a different direction. It's going to be clear. And I mean, it's hard, but as Leslie shared, it's really not about us and our heart. It's really about serving the kids that God puts in our care, whether permanently or temporarily. Be the babysitter for a little while. Maybe that's your niche. Go shopping. Maybe that's your niche. But whatever you do something.
I would say something that's been so monumentally valuable to us is the people at church and the people at the school that love our son. Because he does have some challenges. He does have some behavioral issues at times, but those that have asked us questions about it and how we can walk through it and how they can love him better. As a parent, there's nothing that makes us feel more supported and makes us sure that he's going to be okay, because he loves going to church. He loves the workers there. They adore him because they've just poured love on him, and that has meant the world. So
I'm somebody, and I'm watching this conversation. What is just an easy next practical step for being a voice for vulnerable kids?
Like if they're working in a children's ministry, or maybe they're a teacher, or they're already working with children in some way, I would highly suggest looking into what trauma parenting is, what connected parenting is, what it looks like to love a child that comes from trauma, because that was really eye-opening for us in how we love our kids. But I think also too, find either foster parents that you can support, ask them what they need. If you're near a DCFS office, which is Department of Children and Family Services, they can use all the support too. Those social workers are really overwhelmed. Sometimes it's as simple as bringing a breakfast to their office. I mean, we've done that before through our church, and it's meant the world to them.
I know a lot of churches, they'll encourage people to get into a small group, and they'll say, just try one. If it doesn't work out, that's okay, because there are other small groups.
Right.
In the same way, there's ways to serve. Try something. If it doesn't work out, there are other ways to serve, but do something.
What I love about that is there's so many different ways you can invest in kids, no matter what your gifts are or what you enjoy doing, whether you're somebody that likes working directly with kids, you're like, nah, I'm not going to do that. There's so many different layers of working with kids in the church, whether it's like cutting curriculum during the week or working in tech, supporting parents. Like there's just so many different layers.
So our church has gone through a series, talk about how do we bless the people and places that God has put into our life. And one of the ideas is that we just start praying, like just asking God, okay, God, what can I do to bless this individual or this place? And so maybe the next practical step is for someone to just say, okay, God, man, you've really kind of placed this burden on my heart after observing this conversation. I don't know what to do next. Can you reveal that to me, right? And then just be ready when God puts that opportunity kind of in front of you, what he did with you guys when he said, hey, here's a statistic. And you're like, what do we do with this statistic? Right? Like that is on our hearts now. What do we do? So maybe that is the next easy practical step for somebody to take.
Instead of like in the beginning worrying about the big picture, that's what I was doing. I was like, oh my goodness, this process is so overwhelming. Just take that first step. And then if it's not confirmed, go a different direction like he was saying. But we just took it a step at a time, because if you think about the whole thing, none of us have known where God's going to lead us. He has the big picture. He gets it. He's guiding. If we're letting him guide us, it's going to be so much better than we could have imagined anyway. So.
And the Bible says in the book of James that we heal in community. Those kids aren't going to heal without people stepping in to love them, to walk with them, to point them to the ultimate healer. If we don't do that, who will?
A foster mom shared this with me a while ago, and it really just was a good visual for me that elephants travel in matriarch groups, right?
Yeah.
So there's like a matriarch who might be an aunt or a grandmother, whatever, and all the females travel together. And if there is a need, like if there is a female elephant giving birth, they will surround that baby or the mother giving birth and kind of face outward and blow their trunks and stir up dirt to warn the predator, hey, look, you can't come over here because we're protecting. And I kind of think as a church, that's our job. These kids are hurting and we need to protect them. Like it's all of our jobs. It's not just the mother's job or the father's job. It's the community's job. And I just think that's such a good visual of what we should be doing as a church and making sure that these kids are not just left out there to be taken by predators, because the predators are waiting to do that. So we need to just really step in and make sure that they're okay.
Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's just so awesome to hear from you guys and how you guys are, all of you, even in the different ways that you're doing it. You're stepping in for those kids who really just need the love of Jesus in their life, and you're providing that in your homes. You're providing that from the church's context, and that's just so good to hear. So, just so appreciative of you guys. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we loved it.
All right.
Yeah.